to my gathering basket. My name is Danelle. Thank you so much for coming back and visiting me in my little pocket of the handmade homesteading community here on YouTube. I have several finished objects for you today. The first off we'll start with is spinning. If you have followed my podcast for any amount of episodes at all, first off, thank you so much. And second of all, you're going to recognize this. This is my finished, let's see if I can show you, alpaca Angora silk mix that I have been spinning on for several years. This came out when it was all washed to be about almost exactly 500 yards, a little bit over. 500 yards of, well, depending on how you measure it, I think it's a very light fingering, just a little bit more than a lace, but a little bit less than a fingering. This is gonna be something, because I have a little mini skein as well, so this is just shy of 4 ounces altogether. This is from roving that I got from Prairie's Edge, my friend Kathleen, and it's a blend of alpaca, Angora rabbit, and silk. She does not have the percentages of each on there, but it is cloud soft. It's beautiful, and I don't think the color is going to show up accurate, but it has this reddish brown color that I am just very anxious to see knit up now that I finally have it spun. So I'm not really sure what pattern I'm going to. I'm pretty sure I want to do a shawl with it, but I'm not sure. I've got my list down to 5 or 6 top contenders. I have spent a lot of time on Ravelry this last week or so just trying. I tried not to think too hard about a pattern. I didn't want to get my heart set on a pattern before I knew the yardage that I would have to work with. I had several kind of in mind that were going to be like 800 yards, and obviously I can't do that. So I'm just having fun sitting here petting it and squishing it. I wish I could just invite you all over and you could get a squish too, because it is so incredibly soft. So anyway, that is done. I am just so excited to have, I am calling this an FO. It is a finished object just being in a skein of yarn. I have had that those bags of roving sitting around for way too long, especially since I like it so much. I'm so glad to have it spun up, and I will keep you posted on what it grows up to be. So there is finished object number 1 for today, in spinning no less. So I have that done, and then just kind of some updates on some other projects that you've seen. I have started working on my fiber prep for my cooped up sweater. This is a sweater, let's see, I think I have the picture right here, in black and white, of course. Sorry, this may not show up. You can see the little chickens there in black and white. I'm going to be doing the body of the sweater in this yellow, and I had been trying to hold, I had a bright yellow and a bright orange, and I was trying to hold them together and spin them together to kind of blend those colors right at the wheel. Well, that worked okay, but it was a little bit hard to manage. So I decided to get out my drum carder and see what that would do. So sure enough, I did go ahead, and this is blowing out. But it did, I did 2 passes through the drum carder, and if you look at it, you can definitely see the 2 colors. Maybe that's a little bit better. You can still see the 2 colors. I didn't completely blend it, but this is going to be so much easier to spin. And I have done a couple samples, and it does, I can get a more consistent yarn, I think, because I'm not focusing on drafting 2 colors together. So I'm very pleased with what's happened so far. I had here's my little sample card with the singles. And I told you I would tell you about this once I had a chance to actually use it. These are wraps per inch guides, and this just lists all of the common weights of yarn and the wraps per inch. You can find that anywhere. The fun part comes over here in their little scale, and there's actually 3. I think I only brought one over here with me. This is for 3-ply yarns. So basically it's broken it down. I have these for just for the finished yarn. I have a lot of these, but in this little guide, and I think it's Electric Carnation. It was on Etsy. It was a download PDF. And what I've started doing is just printing these out when I start a new project, and then I can, like I did there, tape my samples to it. So I still have a little sample of the singles. I can also put in, when I get to the point where I know exactly what yarn I want, I'll put a ply back test here. But what this does is give you, okay, if you want a worsted weight yarn, which is what I'm trying to end up with here, then at 3 plies, this is what all of your single plies need to be in order to go to eventually ply into a 3-ply. And then there's another one for a 2-ply yarn and one for a singles yarn. So it kind of gives you a good working idea of where I need to be. Now, there is an exception, of course. I spun up, according to the gauge here, the wraps per inch, I spun up what I thought was going to be a singles to make a 3-ply. Well, I don't know, this was not sold by a specific breed of yarn when I bought this roving. So I'm not really sure what kind it is. It feels a little bit like a Corriedale kind of feel to it, but that's just a total guess on my part. But when I made up my little sample and went ahead and washed it and set the twist, it fluffed up enough to be a good Aran weight. Not quite bulky, but way heftier than a worsted. So what that tells me is I did another sample and used the sport category on my little WPI tool, and I think that's going to come out to be about a worsted. So a little bit of adjustment. I've made another 2 or 3 samples, and I think I'm getting close. I'm definitely doing a, because I took my combed top and went through the drum carder. Really, I have a bat, kind of a roving sort of prep. So this is going to be a woolen prep, and then I'm using a long draw to go ahead and spin this. And I haven't entirely decided between 2 and 3-ply yet. I'm still making samples. The nice thing is I have lots of this that I can sample, so I can really practice before I get started. So this is one bat made, and I actually will need about 6 more of these, I think, something like that. So I've got a lot more carding to do before I even get started spinning. So I have that, and then oops, it's fallen. For the chickens, part of the color work in that sweater, I have this amazing fiber, which is about the color of my speckled Sussex chickens. This is a blend of wool, I think it's wool alpaca and banana silk. So I have been spinning this stuff up, and I did my trick that I think I told you about before, where I went through and broke my roving into the amount that I could spin in 15 to 20 minutes. And I got it broken down into, I think it was 19 or 20 pieces about this size. And I sat down, and with the long draw, in that 15 minutes, I could do easily 2 to 3 of these. So I actually am almost finished. I'm just now finishing the second bobbin. I have one more bobbin to spin up, and then I'm going to start playing with the ply back. I think I'm going to try it with a 3-ply. I think I've got it about to the right size on the singles. I'm hoping that will make a worsted 3-ply, but if not, I'm going to try plying 3 together. If that is a little bit too thick, I'll probably do a few yards, cut that off, and go ahead and wash it, because I know I have, again, probably at least twice the amount that I need of this. I've got a healthy amount to do some sampling. So I want to see what it washes up, what it blooms up to be, before I go ahead and ply the whole thing and make sure I have the consistency that I want. So I am well on my way to starting my next sweater spin, which is very exciting to me because I have several sweater spins planned for this year. I don't know how many will get done, but there's another sweater that I want to do that has, it's actually, and I didn't bring the book over, I'll show it when I get a little closer, but it's a pattern that's specifically made for hand spun yarn. And the roving that was spun to make that sample, it's called the Tetris sweater, and it was in the Jillian Marino's Yarn to Texture book. And the sample was all sorts of colors, and I believe it was from Into the World. It was beautiful variegated roving, and that characteristic was really played up well in the design. So at first I thought I would go ahead and buy a few braids of roving. I have spun several Into the World rovings before, and they're wonderful. And then I thought I could talk to Peggy from the 100th Sheep and see if she could dye up something similar in colors that I might like a little better. And then I looked at the actual roving information that was given in the book, and it said it was Romney roving. And I thought, well, I've got like almost 6 pounds of roving that I just got back from the mill that's Romney from my friend Darlene. And I thought, well, surely I could go ahead and dye up my own. And I got to thinking about it, and this was kind of a work in progress. It still is a work in progress, actually. But I thought I could, I wanted to use natural dyes just for the fun of it, see how many colors I could get. And the nice part with natural dyes is a lot of times colors that maybe in an acid dye that you'd never put together actually blend together really well in natural dyes. So I started sectioning up a bunch of this roving, and one dye I had never worked with is logwood. And I got, last year at the Fiber Days Festival in our area, I bought several sample packs of different natural dye stuffs, and one of them was some logwood bark. And I was gonna bring it to show you, but I couldn't get it to show up on the camera. Maybe I'll take a picture if I can take a decent one and insert it, but it just looks like a pile of bark. But when you put it in water, it turns purple. So I dyed up a couple pieces of roving. There's one, and it's coming up just a little bit brighter on camera. It's almost a navy purple in real life, but it is this rich, rich color. That was the first bath that I did. And then after I took this out, I stuck another one in there to try to exhaust the dye. And this is what I got. Again, it's showing up just a little bit brighter on camera, but it's close. So I have these two, and then I actually right now have another ball of wool that's in the pot cooling off. And it's going to be almost a gray purple. It's the very end. I think I'm almost to the point where I've exhausted all of the dye out of that bark. It took just a little bitty tiny bit of bark. I think I had 4 ounces of it that I bought, and I haven't used anywhere. I don't think I even used a ½ ounce. For me, you can get very scientific with natural dyeing if you'd like to. For me, I like the fact that I'm not very, I don't have to be real specific. I don't have to weigh everything out. I have no intention of repeating. The whole point of this was to get a variegated roving. So what I'm gonna do, because for me, I don't have a lot of space to be working on dyes. I don't have a lot of pots. I really didn't want to have to make up a whole different bunch of dye stock and have to keep it in the refrigerator and all that in order to make an actual variegated roving. But the more I thought about it, I thought, well, I could just make a whole bunch of these little balls. I think these are close to 50 grams a piece. So it's going to take a lot of balls of fiber to make what I need to make the sweater. But then what I plan to do is just, again, kind of like I've done with my other big spins, I have these sectioned off. That's how I measured it off, because I didn't have a scale that I could put a whole 50 grams on. So I just measured a small piece, again, not specific, not very scientific here, and or exact, and weighed out one length. And this came up to, I think it was 0.9 grams or something like that. So I just sectioned off like 10 and, you know, made balls that I thought were going to be sort of equal, that I could actually, this is about all that I can dye in my little pots. So I have 3 of these made, and what I will do is probably, I don't know, chop them into pieces about like that and make little nests, and then I can actually just take, once I've got all of them dyed, I can just pop them all into a bucket, and I can take them out just kind of randomly and spin them one at a time, so that when I am done, I will have what looks like a variegated roving. But I won't have as much of the blending between the colors as you get with a roving. I think I can make cleaner sections of color, and I can make them random sections of color. So I'm really curious to see, this may be a total bust of an idea, or it may be brilliant, I don't know. But this way I can dye several different dye baths and use up a dye bath, and then I can go on to the next color. I have cochineal that I plan to use, and that can be anywhere from red to magenta, typically. I've got marigold that I saved from last summer. I think I still have some coreopsis, and those both give yellows and almost oranges. And then, let's see, I've got madder root that does kind of an orangey red scale. And then I've got avocado pits and skins saved as well, and those do kind of a peachy color. Let's see, what else did I, oh, I've got onion skins I may use, and oh, and then I've got walnut husks that I picked up in the yard this year. So I'm gonna try those. Those give a real nice brown. So I don't know, I'm just gonna go ahead and dye up, just keep dyeing these balls. Now I did decide after doing these, I may give this a rest until spring. I had forgotten just how much this can smell up your house. Definitely want to be safe, use good ventilation. I was just doing a very small amount at a time and tried to do it when I could, when I was going to be leaving the house. So I'd, for example, go ahead and heat the dye in the morning. I'd had it all ready and soak overnight, and then in the morning I could turn it on, get it up to temperature, and then I would leave for work while it was cooling off, and hopefully not breathe in too much of it. So this may be on a project that gets put on hold until I have a little bit more chance to either open the windows or go outside with it. But I was pretty excited about the colors that came out. I also stuck some cotton fabric that I had mordanted into the pots at the same time, and I kind of do that anytime I work with a natural dye, and eventually I would like to make a quilt out of my natural dyed pieces of fabric. So that's been my dyeing this last couple weeks. And let's see. And then I wanted, on the other spinning front, there's a campaign that I wanted to make you aware of. You may already have heard of it, called the Shear 'em to Save 'em campaign, that's been put on by the Livestock Conservancy. This is a pretty neat organization that is working to preserve heritage breeds of livestock in the US. And there are similar organizations. I know the UK has one. I know there are different regions of the world have their own livestock conservancy type of organization. In the US, there are, I believe they say 22 varieties or breeds of sheep that are either kind of on watch or all the way up to threatened and critical status. And those status levels are determined by the number of animals, the number of breeding pairs that are being kept at any one time. And they're reevaluated every year. And some years, I think there were 3 breeds this year, I don't remember which ones, that 2 of them that actually the numbers went up and they were taken off the threatened list and kind of moved up to the next better category. And I believe there was 1 that they said was more threatened now than it was in 2018 or 2017, I guess. So what they have done is they're trying to match fiber artists with fiber producers. So right now, it hasn't actually opened up for fiber artists yet. They were hoping to have it done this week, and they are working on their provider list, kind of fine-tuning that and making sure that it is a lot easier than it had been to find farms that are producing this wool. So I'm a little bit sketchy on details. Hopefully in the next couple weeks I know the fiber producers have already had all of their information finalized, and there's going to be some sort of a passport system, and anytime you order from a share 'em to save 'em producer, when you get your fiber, roving, yarn, fleece, they will send you a sticker to put in your passport. And I believe it sounds like it's a 3-year program. So it's nothing, it's been funny to watch their Facebook page because people are just desperate to get the fiber just as fast as they can. And there apparently will be some prizes, and you need to be able to use at least 4 ounces of a pure fiber. They don't want you blending different breeds, because the whole point is to see what these breeds are like. And you do need to buy fiber from an approved shepherd or provider, basically because they're trying to support their organization, and this was put together with funding from a grant. So they do have some pretty specific rules. I have been excited about this since they announced it, I think last October or something like that. And it's taken them some time. I don't know that they realized just how anxious fiber artists were going to be to take part in this. The tone that I'm reading into their posts on Facebook anyway, sound like they're just a little bit overwhelmed, which is amazing. I am really excited to see how many people are jumping in, and people that just have, I think today there was a post from a lady that said her daughter was raising Jacob sheep for a 4-H project, and she had 4 sheep, and she was hoping to get listed as an approved fiber producer so that she would have a place to sell her fleeces from those 4 sheep. So it's anything from a girl doing a 4-H project to very large farms that have multiple breeds. So if that's something that if you are a spinner, and really it doesn't, I think of this as a spinning thing because that's kind of where I am trying. I'm trying to do the roving. I do not want to do the fleeces. I don't enjoy the prep work. I just don't feel like I'm good enough at that. So I am looking at buying roving and spinning for the most part, but there's also several breeds on there that like the caracal and what was the one I just looked at? Navajo churro. Yes, you can spin, but makes wonderful rugs. So some of this I may be doing some weaving. I am also looking into braiding the roving, and there's one of the providers that has what looks like a pretty good book on making braided sewn rugs, and I will, if I decide, I haven't bought any of the fiber yet. I'm waiting for the fiber artist sign-ups so that I know that I have all the rules correct and can make a plan from there. So that should be up for us they were hoping by the very first part of February. That is my spinning news. Let's see, knitting. I have some finished objects in knitting. I think I told you last time, I was kind of at the point of analysis paralysis. I had finished all my projects and was trying to decide what to cast on. I have cast on, I believe, 5 sweaters in the last 2 weeks, none of which I've been able to get gauge on. So they have all been ripped out. They have been restarted, and by ripped out, I mean like swatching. I haven't ripped out too many sweaters yet. So I did a lot of swatches. I tried different patterns. I've tried different yarns and just can't seem to come up with exactly what I want to do. I did go ahead and I think I have the next pattern. I am working on getting it started, actually cast on, like past the swatch stage. I'll show you next time if that works. But in the meantime, I thought I needed to do some small projects. So one that has been on my list for years has been the duffer slippers, like this. They are a worsted Aran bulky weight pattern that is knit in one piece, seamed up, and then thrown in the washer and felted or fold. So I saw these on a podcast, probably one of the very first podcasts I ever watched. I don't remember the name of it, and she stopped podcasting several years ago. But she was constantly making these for gifts, and they just looked so cute. So there you go. They're duffers. They're little dock shoes made out of yarn. And the nice part about this, it didn't take nearly as much yarn as I thought it was going to. In fact, I've made 2 sets and used half the yarn I expected to. And this was some like de-stash, had been in my stash for quite some time. I believe this was a Cascade bulky, and this was an alpaca fiber. And you can tell that they felted much differently if you look at it close up. So you almost have this tread look, which I really liked. And then this, you can hardly see the stitches at all. This would be wonderful for some practice hand spun. Like I said, it didn't take, I don't know the yardage, but it didn't take nearly what I thought the pattern indicated. So it was a very, and time-wise, I believe, yeah, these were knitted on a US 10.5. And this is what they look like before they're felted. Now, I will say this was the next size up. I wanted to be able to felt these just a little bit harder. There are 2 different pattern options on Ravelry. These are called the Duffer Slippers, or Duffers Slippers, and it's by Knit Purl Makes. And there's the original version, and then I think there's a Duffers Revisited. The difference, the Duffers Slippers only has 3 sizes, so it's a little bit limited on the size range. I was lucky enough that I could fit into one of the suggested sizes here. If you need other sizes, I think this pattern was 4 pages long, and I think she said that the Duffers Revisited has like a dozen sizes, and I think it's like 17 pages and has lots of detailed information on felting, on making it fit. So if you do need that, the Duffers Revisited, this was a little bit less expensive pattern, obviously, because it was fewer sizes, but it worked for me just fine. And I think it would be very easy to resize if you needed to. That said, if you had wanted to make them for like your whole family, it would definitely be worth the extra $1 or $2 for the full pattern. But this is what it looks like before it's felted. And like I said, this was the next size up, which was a 4-stitch difference. So it wasn't terribly different, but that's before felting and then felted. And sorry, it's blowing out, but you can see in this one, you can see the stitches very, very well. This one, once it's felted, it's just felt fabric, especially with that alpaca, just felted down so well. So they're kind of floppy. And then when you felt them, that gives them some body, and they just go on and off, and like I said, they even stand up nicely by themselves, just like a regular shoe. And I thought I had the second one ready to go, and I thought I would show you the construction. So here's what you knit. Basically, you start with the sole in the middle of the sole, and it says on there a 19-row pattern, and it literally is, all the sizes are 19 rows. So you knit 19 rows. After 9 rows, you switch to your top color if you want to do them in 2 colors. You can do the whole thing obviously in 1, but that's what gives you kind of that dock shoe sole look. And then it is literally 1 seam, which takes about 2 minutes to do. To knit these took me something like an hour and a half, 2 hours a piece. Very, very simple, very satisfying, especially when I slipped them on my foot and they fit. I took these over to my parents' house because I'm always popping over there, and I'll end up staying over to do something and my feet are cold, and so I just made 1 pair that I could keep over there, slipped them behind the sofa, and they're there anytime I want them, and then came home and decided, hey, I've still got yarn. I can make another pair for me here at home. So I thought it'd be interesting to show you before felting, and what it looks like as you knit. I don't know why this took me so long. At least 5 years this has been on my Ravelry queue. So I am really enjoying having my finished slippers, and I am so excited to have something off my Ravelry queue. And then another challenge that I worked on. I'm really enjoying these challenges this year. Seems to be a year I'm working on not so much projects, but learning, improving my knitting, as well as crocheting and my weaving, and taking some classes, investing in some let's see, it's blueprint now classes, and taking some courses. One thing that I decided to do a couple years ago, and just I bought it and never got a chance to do it, is to do the Master Crochet program with the Crochet Guild of America. So January 1st, I pulled out all my materials. There's actually 2 courses. They're not levels in the same way that the Master Knitter program does. These are actually, one is Fundamentals of Crochet, and the other one is Advanced Stitches. So I am working on the Fundamentals class first, and it has 8 chapters, and I am working on the 3rd. I am really hoping to get both of those done this year. Sooner than later, if possible. It shouldn't take me that long. This isn't nearly as in-depth as, it's teaching me a lot, but it's not nearly as in-depth in the amount of work as the Master Knitter program appears to be, from what I've heard. It doesn't have book reviews and things like that. It is swatches and questions. It's been very interesting. I count myself as a fairly experienced crocheter. Like I said, I've gone through the Craft Yarn Council's crochet instructor course and had to do 2 huge, I have a stack this big of pages of swatches that I did for that program. I have crocheted for many years. I've been a test crocheter, sample crocheter. It has been humbling to me to step back and start really, do I really know all the different parts of the single crochet, and how to look at a piece and tell exactly. There was one we had to look at and tell whether that was made by a left-hand or right-hand crocheter. I just never would have thought of that before. So as basic as it seemed at the beginning, and as basic I guess as it is, it's been a very good exercise for me, and I have made myself there's a lot of examples that you don't have to turn in, and at first I will admit I looked at those and said, well, I'll just turn in the samples that are homework, that are required. I'm not going to do all those other little exercises. And then when I made myself sit down and really do all those simple, one of them you had to do 3 different types of yarn. One of them was even fishing line, they suggested. Make a chain and look at how the chain works in all the different types of yarn, and why would you use this versus that, and where would this be a help and a hurt. Very interesting. So I have been doing a lot of work on that, and I've been enjoying. I haven't done crochet very much for quite a while, and I've been enjoying that very much. But another program that I got into, just kind of on a whim, I saw that the Aroha Knits 5 Shawls 5 Days challenge was open again. And I had seen this in years past. I think she's done it 1 or 2 years so far. And this is she goes by Frenchie of Aroha Knits. She has an ebook, not a course, but an ebook that contains 15 shawl shapes. And she does these 5 shapes in 5 days. So every day you get an email with directions for a different shape of shawl. And you have 1 day to do it. The nice part, I didn't think I could pull off 5 swatches in 5 days, but she actually says on her instructions, don't spend more than 30 minutes on any of them. So I could commit to 30 minutes, and every night she had a Facebook live stream with her showing tips for those different shapes. And if you were able to join in live, you could ask questions, and there were lots of really good, very smart questions I wouldn't have even thought to ask about the different shawl shapes. So this is made, for example, with my Angora, not really being able to find exactly the right pattern. I have the sapphire blue lace weight that I did last summer, and I haven't really found the perfect pattern for that either. And it's made me think, okay, maybe it's time to start designing some of my own, because I have in my head sort of what I'm looking for. I just didn't really take the time or have the confidence or whatever, the knowledge to be able to sit down and put that on paper and maybe make this into what I want, not what somebody else has designed. I don't know. It's on my goal. It's goal list for this year. But what we did this time started out with a simple triangle shawl. And this one, she had a bunch of, okay, so everybody's done a triangle shaped shawl. Here's some variations. So I started with the basic and then started doing some different types of increases. So it was just kind of a cute little study on different increases. Very quick to work up. And then the next day we did crescent shapes. Okay, so I didn't have quite as much time to work on this one. But, you know, by the time you've done this much of a shawl, you pretty much have it down. So that was her whole point, just see how the increases go. If you varied this, some people did, varied where the increases went along that line to make even more shapes. So the crescent, and then, let's see, then we did the asymmetrical, like the boomerang type shawl. And in this one, she said, and if you want to go further, which kind of sounded like a dare, you know, play around with how would you increase, how would you change the increases to go different directions. So I kind of just played around while I was watching the live stream and made a tip in the other direction a little bit. So again, just fun to play. The fourth day was a 3/4 shawl. So we had that shape. And then the last one, and probably my least favorite, is the square, kind of like I was talking about. And that one we used the little pinhole cast on. I actually didn't get this one done until day 6. Had a crazy day at work. Didn't get home until late and decided this was probably not my priority. So I made this the next day. So I had 5 shawls in 6 days. I believe she is planning on doing this, she said, at least 2 more times this year. So if that's something, and I may jump in on it again just to try the different shapes. If you get her ebook, she has 15. So I'm thinking, you know, if you do this maybe 3 times, it might be all 15 shapes. And she's got several other resources. There is a fun little free quiz that you can do, and she's identified, I think, 5 different types of knitters. What kind of knitter are you? And that was kind of fun to go through on her website too. So that was my other challenge, and I think she said her next challenge is going to be a color work, which I've already decided that I want to do. Like I have that cooped up sweater. I want to do more color work this year. So depending on where I am at the point when she decides to release that, I may try doing that challenge as well this year. So if you enjoy those kind of little challenges, the nice part is it was very short, no pressure. Learned a lot for the amount of time that I committed to it. So it just depends on, like I said, I've looked at them in the past and knew that I just didn't have the time or the mental space at that point. But I may try to do some more of those again in the future. So let's see. Oh, and then behind me, I actually got another quilt top finished. This is the iced tea pattern. And this is going to be for my niece. When she was up this summer, she graduates from high school this year, and when she was up this summer, I had her come out to the quilt shop one day when I was working, and I said, if you want to pick out what you would like for a graduation quilt. And I had all these crazy, complicated, beautiful quilt patterns in my head and that I was going to show her, and she ended up picking out probably one of the simplest quilts in the shop, which was fantastic because I could get it done in time. But this one is called Iced Tea, and it's just a very simple, and she liked the batiks. So we picked out some fabrics, and this is what we wound up with. So this is one block. This is definitely, I have pointed this out to a lot of beginners that come into the shop because it is, and I had it, there we go. There are 5 seams. and they are all straight seams. So that's what one block looks like. And I don't know if I can, you literally start over here, you do a half a seam, then you put this one on, then you do this, and this one, just kind of like building a log cabin. So very, very simple, and depending on the color combinations that you pick, this one had 15 colors. Everyone has the orange block, and then it has 4 around it, and there were, I believe, 14 different colors used, different patterns of fabric. So she liked the batik, and it's a very different design for me. It's not something I would normally pick out, but it was fun to put together. I actually did it in 2 nights quite some time ago, last fall. And when I went to put them to lay them all out to decide which blocks I wanted next to each other, I realized that because I had done them in 2 nights, one night I did half of them one way, and the next night I did them the opposite direction. So it's kind of a pinwheel. So one night I started here and I went around, and the next night apparently I thought I was doing them the same. I started here and went this way, which totally messed up the layout when you put them together. So I had to sit down with my trusty seam ripper and rip out, I can't remember, it was almost half of the blocks. Rip them all the way completely out and start over. I didn't have enough fabric to do new, and I didn't want to waste that much fabric anyway and have to cut out new pieces. So this time I just picked them all out, which I let this set, I think I finished all of those like August or September, and figured that out way back then, and I was dreading picking out all that stitching. When it got right down to it, like a lot of things that you dread, it took me less than an hour to get them all picked out, and then probably another hour to 2 hours to get them all sewn and ironed and laid out, and then I just put them all together very quickly. So very pleased with the way it came out. I am a little unsure. I'm getting closer to May, so I don't have quite a lot of time. I do need to get it quilted yet. So I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to just quilt this on my home machine and do mostly straight stitch quilting. It's a very simple design. It wouldn't take a lot of complex quilting to do. So I'm not sure if I will put this on the long arm at work and quilt it up with a fancy design, or if I will just go ahead and do it on my home machine. We'll see. Kind of depends on time. So that is my quilting project. And then let's see, homestead wise, let's see. Oh, onion seeds are up. We planted our onion seeds last week, and I might try to pop over to my parents. My mom has them in her window, and take a picture of them. They're just about this tall. They're so cute. I love doing anything in the allium family. My garlic is up outside. It got its nose frosted off. It's probably it's gonna have to regrow, but that's typical, and it will. But those rows are so nicely mulched, and then you see the little green spears poking up. And in January, when everything is frozen, typically, it's kind of neat to see signs of something growing. And the onions are the very first thing that we plant. It will be quite a while before we plant anything else. So it's really fun to just kind of sniff that dirt and see the seeds sprouting. Spring will be here, which means I need to knit and quilt fast because I won't be able to do nearly as much of that once we get into garden season again. But onions are up. That's the good news. The down news is I had a chicken get injured. So I played the whole Homesteader with the chicken in a box in my mudroom and trying to nurse it back to health. And a few hours ago, I had my neighbor come over. She was going to look at it. She is quite a chicken lady. And I said, well, you know, if you want to come and see if there's anything else you can suggest to me doing. And we walked out to see her out in my mudroom, and we were talking about her and what we could do different and what might have happened. And she leaned over to pick it up and said, well, I don't think that chicken's still alive, Danelle. Life on a farm. There's ups and downs. And really, honestly, she had gotten injured and probably pecked by the other chickens, and I'm not sure exactly what all happened, but anyway, it was kind of one of those where I was hoping she would either get better quickly and I could nurse her back to health, or she would not quickly, because I did not want to watch her suffer. That's the worst. So anyway, egg production is up, but my number of hens is down. And I hate that. I hate that, but it is part of raising any kind of livestock. So you have to accept one with the other, unfortunately. So that is, well, I don't want to end completely on a downer, but I don't want to make it sound like homesteading is all fantastic and only good things happen. So I think it's fair to tell you when things don't, so that if you are in a homesteading sort of situation, you know you're not alone. Because sometimes, there for a while, it seemed like all the podcasters I listened to, it was all roses all the time. Everything was fantastic. Everything worked. And then it seems like in the last couple of years, people have gotten a little bit more brave about telling when things don't work, when things go wrong. Things aren't always happy. There are some things that are a struggle. And then if you're interested in starting this, it's a reality you have to face, unfortunately. So that's the reason I kind of bring that up. So I want to bring, just kind of to end here, sorry about that. I used to do a lot of cross stitching, and I know cross stitching has gotten very popular. So I thought I would bring back, I had a piece that I did more than 20 years ago. I'm not really even sure when I stitched this up, but it was the first really big cross stitch that I did, and never framed it. Never had a place to put it, so I just didn't bother getting it framed. And I thought, I was sorting through some things recently, cleaning some things out, and ran across it again, and it was stained. Like I said, it had never been finished, or never been framed, so it was just rolled up in the fabric on the Aida cloth. So I pulled it out and went ahead and got it framed, and there it is. Glare on that glass, sorry. Here's a better picture of it. So speaking of farmsteads and quilts, there you go. So I was very happy with the way that turned out. Very fun to get that put together, and I'm anxious. I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to put it on the wall, but it was fun pulling that out from years and years ago, and actually getting that completely finished. So there's my stitching, my quilting, my knitting, my crocheting report, my garden, my chickens, and my spinning, all in, shockingly close to an hour. I'm sorry. This is gone. I will try to edit this down just a little bit shorter than that for you. I appreciate you sticking around with me. I hope that there's been a thing or two here that's maybe sparked some interest of things to try. Check out that 5 shawls in 5 days and some of those other challenges, the link I'll give you. If you're interested in the rare breeds of sheep, check out the Livestock Conservancy and the Rare World Project. That should be starting soon. So I am anxious to see the sign-ups come live for that. If there's anything you have questions about or need further information, or if you have advice to give me, please drop it below. I've got all my contact information at the end. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Until I see you in a couple weeks, I hope your gathering basket just bubbles up with blessings. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.